Well, what have you been watching on Disney Plus? We'll tell you exactly what we've been watching on Disney Plus here on The Mouse and Men, where we explore the grown-up side of Disney. Find us online at themouseandmen.com. You can get our top 10 things for grown-ups to do in Walt Disney World, plus links to all of our social media, links to YouTube where we broadcast the podcast, which brings me to Who Are We? I'm Bradley. I'm here with my co-caster, Chris. Chris, what are you watching on Disney Plus?
And so many things. When you mentioned to do an episode on this, I started diving into kind of what I'm watching. And I would have said that I'm watching this movie and this series, but that's about it. Well, no, sometimes I'm watching this with my kids, or sometimes I watch this with my daughter and this with my son. So I realized that I'm in the middle of 6 or 7 different series and movies right now, all just based on the different preferences of the family. So there's a lot more that I was watching that I even knew. So I'm excited to dive into it, hear what you've been watching, explain a little bit of why I'm watching what I am, and I'd love to hear from our listeners and watchers as well, because this community, it's just better when we get to conversate, dialogue about all this stuff. So I'd love to hear from everybody else too after they've listened to the episode.
I agree. I feel like there's always something, I don't know. Recently, I feel like there's just been a lot of stuff popping up, and I'm trying to consume it all. I'm watching stuff on my own and then also rewatching it with my wife because I can't wait. So we're just going to jump straight into what we've been watching.
Yeah, man. Last week when we were talking about all of the new things that are coming down the pike for the Marvel Cinematic Universe, it's overwhelming almost. And if you don't stay on top of it, then before you know it, you're like, oh, I've missed the whole series. How am I going to understand what's going on? And so with the idea of just let's talk about what we have been watching. You're right. There is so much on Disney that no matter what your interests, no matter where you are age-wise or season of life, my family, at least, we have found something there. And so my first thing that I've watched is, again, it's no secret on this podcast how much I am a fan of animation, and specifically the whole Pixar story and how they came to Disney and then almost separated and now they're owned by Disney. I love Pixar. I was just mesmerized from the first time I saw the first scene from Toy Story all the way up until Luca recently. I just love everything that they're putting out. And so one of my favorite things that Pixar did from the very earliest days is you go into the theaters, you sit down, you watch all the previews, and then before the movie starts, you get a little short film that they are packaging in with watching this movie. And sometimes you can tell that this short film, they're really specifying or practicing their work with water or work with feathers or whatever it may be. And then you see the next movies that are coming out, and you need to be more of an expert on water or feathers or animal hair or whatever it may be. And so it's so cool to see how they use these smaller short films to kind of practice what's going to be on the next major film. So I've always been a fan of these. I didn't know until recently that they were called Spark Shorts. And so it's just kind of what Pixar calls their short films is Spark Shorts. There's a whole section of it on Disney Plus, and I've fallen in love with it because I can watch some of my favorite Spark Shorts from all of the movies in Pixar's past. And then when a new one drops, I love that too. Recently, a new one dropped called 20-something. I believe the director and writer's name is Afton Corbin. And she created this movie or this short film, Spark Shorts, called 20-something basically about a girl trying to feel grown up and all the things that happen when you're you're kind of in that phase between being a grown up and you're still kind of feel like a teenager kind of thing. And so it was a beautiful, quick film that I watched recently. And as a therapist in my day job, this is actually a film. I reached out to Afton Corbin after I watched this and commented on her Instagram feed because I was so impressed by it. I want to actually use it with some of my clients. And so it's kind of like in the manner of Inside Out. You're watching something and you're being entertained, but you're also learning a bit about the human psyche that's important to learn as a human. So anyway, all that to say, my first entry into today's talking points is 20-something, a Spark Shorts by Afton Corbin. I couldn't recommend it more. It's again, it took a few minutes to understand what the whole premise was, but once I was into it, man, I really enjoyed watching it. So 20 something, I'd recommend that to anybody out there.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'd seen the Spark shorts pop up on that main banner, and I was always trying to figure out, okay, what is that? I'm gonna have to look into that. But those and I believe it was Toy Story. Was it Jerry's Game or something like that? It's the old man playing chess.
Yes.
And I don't remember if we saw Toy Story in theaters, but we had it on VHS, and that popped up at the beginning of the VHS. And sometimes we just watch that. We just want to see that part of it.
Right. Yeah.
Or on the DVD, just watching those little shorts. So that's awesome. So I'm going to have to go watch 20 something. I've seen that it was one of the most recently added ones.
Right.
So this weekend I will be watching. I'm going to start off with Turner and Hooch.
Oh, yes.
The movie with Tom Hanks. Tom Hanks does phenomenal. I mean, he's just fantastic in most everything he does. But
he's America's father. We always love Tom Hanks.
Yeah. He did so great in this movie. So I went back and rewatched the movie before I started watching this new series. And this new series, I'll set it up. The main character is Scott Turner, not the Scott Turner from the original Turner Hooch. It's Scott Turner's son, played by Josh. I believe his last name's Bell. Josh Bell, or Josh Peck. Sorry, it's Drake Bell and Josh Peck from Drake and Josh. Josh is the one who plays Scott Turner, the original Scott Turner's son. So he's a great actor himself. He plays the original Scott Turner's son, who has grown up, become a U.S. Marshal, moved to the big city. And when his father passes away, his father had willed the new Hooch to the younger Scott Turner. So, gotcha. and young Scott Turner is just like his dad, OCD, tears the apartment apart when Hooch gets there. But it's great, and it's a series, and it's going along. I'm caught up. I watch them as they come out. My wife, she just watched Turner and Hooch the movie for the first time, loved it. I said, okay, I know it's late, but we got to watch the first episode of the series, and she loved it. So she can't wait to watch more of that.
Good. So
go watch the original movie. It's on Disney Plus, and then start the series. It's great. It's I believe it's pretty family friendly. There's a little bit of gunshots, but it's not bloody by any means. Not a lot of language that I can think of. So especially if you've got older kids like middle school or into high school, like your kids, y'all would be great watching this and younger. Because you don't have to worry about them seeing or hearing anything that they're not ready to see or hear. So I love it. I can't get enough.
I love to hear that personality that Tom Hanks's character in the movie is carried over to his son. Because one of my favorite things about the movie is that this character was such a perfectionist in the movie, and then he's sidled with this dog who is everything. He's the antithesis of perfection. Like if Tom Hanks's character is like, that opening sequence I still remember of getting ready, and everything is precise, and like he's trimming his nose hairs, and everything has a little corner that like round off and everything. And then Hooch comes in here and there's slobber everywhere, and he's knocking stuff over and spilling everything. So I love, that's one of my favorite parts, is to see how ticked off Tom Hanks would get every time that Hooch would do, come on, Hooch. So Hooch! To hear that
Hooch, yeah, just the way Tom Hanks yells Hooch, that alone is worth the price of admission.
It's funny. Almost the entire time that my wife and I have been together, one of the through line little things that we always laugh at is if we're sitting around having breakfast and we have a muffin, then a muffin for Hooch. That's when Tom Hanks freaks out on the muffin thing. We've been saying that our entire relationship. So Turner and Hooch has got a really soft spot in our heart. So we're looking forward to diving into the series.
Well, and there's a little Easter egg. So in the original, above Scott Turner's bed, there's a picture, and it's 10 fingerprints that makes an appearance in the new series above young Scott Turner's bed. So it's great. Josh Peck does a great job in this. Great actor. So go check out Turner and Hooch.
Yes, totally. Well, the next stop for me is one of the things I realized when putting this list together is kind of what I mentioned at the intro, was that sometimes I watch things just for myself. And then other things I watch because either my kids are currently watching and are into, or it sounds like something that we would enjoy together. And again, having a 15-year-old and a 13-year-old at home, that it's becoming harder to do. Yeah. And so on Disney Plus, though, there again, like we've mentioned many times already, there's something that can be found. I mean, that Disney catalog, especially when you pile on Disney and Pixar and Marvel and Star Wars and National Geographic and Avatar, as that world is growing. There is so much of a library to choose from, and then they're putting out so much new stuff. It's enjoyable across the board. So with that, my son is a huge Star Wars fan. He is currently he watched The Bad Batch himself. It's like the day that the minute that he has a chance to watch a new episode, he's into it. So he loves The Bad Batch. I haven't watched that with him, but one of the things that we have watched together are these new things that Star Wars put out called, it's essentially, there's one called Vehicle Fly-Throughs, where you get to go through like a Star Destroyer, and it just shows you realistically what it looks like, whether it be in one of these Imperial Fleet Star Destroyers or the Millennium Falcon, of just like, going through it and looking at all the things and seeing the controls and seeing the chessboard in the Millennium Falcon and how you walk up into it. And it's so cool. And they have another one. So that's vehicle walkthroughs. They just have the 2 episodes right now, one for Millennium Falcon and I think one for a Star Destroyer. But then they have what's called Star Wars Biomes, which is an 18-minute film that just shows these beautiful aerial shots of different planets in the Star Wars galaxy universe. So it's so cool just to see it. And they're so realistic looking that it's almost meditative, because there's just kind of soft music as it tours you around one of the vehicles. Or it's just watching these things from above, just watching, I think in the distance you see maybe a Wookiee village, and just the fire burning next to the village tents as they're maybe all asleep or away at war, or away at battle, or hunting or something like that. So it's just beautiful. So for my son and I, we have just really enjoyed these kind of cool, meditative, almost moving screensaver things that we've seen in other areas that Disney Plus has now put out for being in Walt Disney World or at Disneyland or something like that. But this is called Star Wars walkthroughs, and whether it's a vehicle fly through or the Star Wars Biomes, it's just a really cool kind of way to get immersed in the Star Wars universe.
Awesome. So I was going to ask, and I think you answered this question. So especially the Biomes, is it similar to like Dory's Reef Cam or the Sunrise series, where it's just aerial shots? There's no voiceover. It's just soft background music, almost just something that you'd have in the background, but you can also watch intently as well. It's kind of like that.
Yeah, absolutely. This would be great. Like if you're going to like get together and have a, we're going to all get together and read our comics together, or play Dungeons and Dragons, or play some Star Wars related game or something like that, just to have that going on and repeat in the background. It's just beautiful because it's just so detailed. It's so lifelike looking. These worlds don't exist, but somehow they've made them look like they're actually there. So there's the advances that they've made in the last few years in computer generated graphics for these series and these films, and it's second to none. And it, again, maybe I would have said this 20 years ago when first watching Jurassic Park and the T-Rex and how that was computer generated and it looked so real. Like that was one version of it, but it's just been perfected over the years. So it looks like I'm really watching an environment when I know that it's all digitally created. But yes, it's flyovers, no voiceover, just soft music to kind of just like put you in that world. So I highly recommend that for any Star Wars fan.
I love it. Well, in speaking of things watching with your son, Saturday mornings, we get up, mama gets to sleep in.
Good.
I'll make breakfast and I will turn on the Sunrise series, and he loves it. Normally he's got something else going on, but it's just a nice, easy way to wake up on a Saturday, or we'll do it on Sundays too. So we'll watch the Sunrise series, but then I'll turn on something. His favorite is Cars right now. He asks for that, which I love. But also we've watched Monsters at Work on Saturday mornings, just because it's got characters that he enjoys, just kind of the goofy monsters, the animated monsters. Also watched some Luca and, but Cars is his favorite. The original Cars is the one that he enjoys the most, but we've also watched Cars 2 and Cars 3. He's got some of the little cars as well. He's got two versions of Lightning McQueen. He's got Mater. He's got Tex Dynaco, and we'll play with those. He'll get those, and when Mater pops up on the screen, he's looking for his little Mater car. So yeah, I'm watching a lot of those again with him, because now he's almost 2. He can follow along a little bit more, and he loves it. So that's what I've been watching with my son as well. Sunrise series, Cars, Monsters at Work. Monsters at Work is great. The series just wrapped, or the season just wrapped. I believe Billy Crystal said something on Twitter the other day alluding to a season 2, which would be
cool.
Awesome. In Monsters at Work, the original Monsters Inc., at the end, they discovered that laugh energy is more potent than scream energy. And so Mike and Sully take over Monsters Inc. and change it over to creating laughs instead of creating screams. And this picks up right then as they take over. Cool. So it picks up right where the movie left off.
That's great. That's so cool, man. Yeah, going back to the Cars thing, I think that Cars came out the year or the year before my son was born. But much like your son, and again, he's 15 now, but when he was your son's age, 3, 4, 5, like for several years, Cars was just it. That was his movie. That was his series, or his, he was just into that world. And gosh, it's so cool to see that now, all these years later, that a movie like that was so impactful for my son, that he didn't watch it in the theaters. Like, it was something that was already there by the time we came about it. The first time he saw it was on DVD. But it works all these years later. Yeah. And so, which is, it's just so cool to think that, like, it just has this longevity that keeps going. Yeah. That after all these years, man, I remember those Cars days. We had every word memorized. And it was like, you remember when you had your CD collection back in the 90s and the early 2000s? Like, there was that one CD that was like scratched up more than the others, but it was like, this is surviving with me. Like, even though it has all the scratches and there may be a skip or two in there, I'm never getting rid of this. That was Cars for us. It had spent so much time in the car floorboard, or it was pulled out in a way of like a toddler not knowing how to handle it. So it always had like some kind of peanut butter smudge or, goldfish grease or something like that on it, but it was always being utilized. So I love that Cars is something that you are enjoying with your son too.
Yeah, I'm trying to introduce him to Toy Story as well. He's not as into the action figures as the Cars, but I know we'll get there.
Totally. Yeah.
So, Chris, what are some other things, and we'll just kind of wrap up with the last few. Sure. What else is piquing your interest on Disney Plus?
And I'll mention two, one really quick and have a bit more detail with the second one. But You mentioned this on our last episode with the what are they called, one shots that Marvel is doing. You got me so excited about that I went back and watched All Hail the King with Ben Kingsley that you talked about. That was originally probably a DVD extra on Iron Man 2 or 3. I think it was 3. But man, I went back and watched that and had a ball. That Ben Kingsley was so good. It was so funny. It was so. Anyway, I watched that and just loved it. So thank you for the suggestion there. Talking about with our kids, my daughter who's 13, she really loves art, loves music. She's in the band at her school. She sings a lot on her own. Big fan of Billie Eilish, and so Billie Eilish has recently put out what they call it's a concert experience, but it's Billie Eilish, Happy Ever After, a love letter to Los Angeles. And man, it was really cool. It's got this neat thing. They're at the Hollywood Bowl performing this whole album start to finish, and it's interspersed with all these cool looking views from just these iconic things from Los Angeles, but it's interspersed not only like the background is real, but every time you see Billie Eilish going through the city, she's animated, but then she won't be animated when she sings a song. So it's this cool, like artistically beautiful way to do, in a year like last year where she probably had this album that she couldn't go out and perform it. She's in a empty Hollywood Bowl, but she's enjoying the music and she's performing it with a full band. And there's there's an orchestra at one point. There's a children's choir that sings with her at one point, but it's all interspersed with this cool footage from Los Angeles. And so my daughter and I had a great time watching that. And I think that Billie Eilish and Disney have a multi-picture deal. So we'll see more from Billie in the future. But I love, again, there's something for every member of our family on Disney Plus. So if you aren't finding it, keep digging because there's a lot of stuff there.
Yeah, I love it. Oh, that's so cool that it's a concert experience, but they're getting creative with it as well because it's not just a live in-person medium. That's awesome. 100%. Things that we've been watching. I watched Mysterious Benedict Society.
Yeah.
What this is, it's I don't know how to describe it, but there's a world that's very almost drunk on negativity and not necessarily doomsday stuff, but everybody's just sad. But there are just a few kids and a couple of adults who still are optimists. And it's a cool little story of how optimism prevails. So cool. It's a good one to watch with your kids. It's definitely late elementary, middle school is kind of the target. But just bored one weekend or late one night, maybe while I was working out, it's like, what is this? Because Disney Plus keeps pushing it, and I really enjoyed it.
I love Tony Hale, who I think that he's on there. The voice of Sporky from the Toy Story, I think the 4th movie. Isn't he in that movie, Tony Hale?
Yeah, and he's
great.
He actually plays 2 different roles.
Cool.
In this series, and it's more of a drama series, and he's fantastic. He does a great job. And then we were talking about Marvel last week. What If? Just very interesting on takes of if just a little bit changed in these Marvel stories, what would have happened to the story? Then my wife and I, we watched Jungle Cruise. We got the premiere access for that. Loved it. I've watched it multiple times. She and I have also watched Big Shot, which I've mentioned before with John Stamos. Great if you want a little bit more sports. Again, kind of a middle school, high school drama. Also plenty of comedy in there as well. That's good. And we just watched Cruella for the first time. Loved it. We have not enjoyed the remakes, and I haven't seen all of them. The Jungle Book was our favorite. Cinderella, I thought it was a Tim Burton film, just the cinematography.
Agreed.
But all these remakes, it's like, I've always seen this story. But these kind of villain origin films, Cruella, Maleficent, they're great. Like the What If series, they're getting to really create something that hasn't been created before, and showing how people end up. How does Cruella end up the Cruella we know from the original 101 Dalmatians story and movie? So check out Cruella. I've heard that there's another one in the works. Oh, cool. The first Maleficent was better than the second Maleficent. Hopefully the second Cruella is kind of on par with this first one. Emma Stone's great. Emma Thompson's great. The Emma Squared was a great team matchup, duo, whatever you want to call it. But there's a lot on Disney Plus that I'm really enjoying by myself, with my wife, with my son. There's something for everybody. And that's what I love about the Disney company, and specifically Disney Plus, is just like the parks. You can find something for everybody on there.
Yep. And again, that goes back, I think, to the reason that we started this podcast in the first place, was to show that there is a side of Disney for every person out there, whether you're young or old. You can always find something to entertain you when it comes to Disney. And again, my last entry into today is going back to something we mentioned here before, Behind the Attraction. I just love that series so much. It really reminds me a lot of the Imagineering story series that came out last year in 2020. But I felt like I gobbled the Imagineering story up in like one afternoon. Like I watched 6 or 8 episodes, however many there were.
It's so hard not to say next episode.
Right. It's too easy, because there's just so much entertainment value as well as education on all of these things that has been part of my life, my whole life. And so I'm trying to slow play Behind the Attraction a little bit more. So I've watched episode 1, which was Jungle Cruise, and episode 2, which is the Haunted Mansion. But I'm slowly playing, like I'm being very selective when I push play on that, because I really want to absorb it and enjoy it. That's probably, maybe personally, my favorite things to watch right now. I love these behind the scenes documentaries, and I learned so much about the Disney company and the corporation and the work ethic and the people that work there. So I'm trying to absorb it a little slower so I can enjoy it. Kind of like, you don't want to gobble down a fine wine. You want to have a little bit at a time. So that's what I'm trying to do with my favorite series, which right now is Behind the Attraction.
Yeah. This is no boxed wine that, it's just, you just drink it all at once.
Right. No, exactly.
That is awesome. And if you want to know more about what's on Disney Plus, we've got something special for you in this week's Plussing. So, Chris, I think you referenced this website just in text conversations with us. Mm-hmm. It's a website, it's a podcast, and it's great if you want to know what's on Disney Plus, because it's called What's on Disney Plus. You can go to what's on disneyplus.com. They've got a link to their podcast. You can find it on your favorite podcast player as well. I guess you just Googled what's on Disney Plus and these guys popped up.
That's literally what happened. I think that you and I were watching a series on Disney Plus a few months back. And they were, it was a National Geographic series on how they make things. And we were watching, I think specifically talking about the Gibson guitar factory in Nashville, where we're based out of, and enjoying that a lot. And I wondered, what else is on Disney Plus that's something like this? And so I Googled what's on Disney Plus, and there it is. It was right there in their name. So I've been enjoying them ever since. And it helps to just see what's coming down the pike, because there is so much. And we talked about last week how there is like 10, 15 things coming out in just the next year, just in Marvel alone. And so to try to keep up with this sometimes is a little overwhelming. So if you want a little help with that, what's on Disney Plus will help you through it, whether the audio form in podcasts or they got a lot of good blog type information on what's on disneyplus.com.
I love it. It's become a very valuable resource for me trying to figure out what to watch, because there's so much coming out that I can't keep up with it all. They can't advertise all of it there on the home screen. So what's on disneyplus.com has really helped me find what what I want to know, what I want to watch. So go check them out. Then go check us out at themouseandmen.com. Find us on social media. Let us know what you've been watching. Is there something maybe we're missing it? Maybe you're watching something on ESPN Plus. I've got some stuff that I really love over on ESPN Plus. They've got their 30 for 30 catalog. They've got Peyton's Places. They've got Detail. They've got Eli's Places now.
Eli's Places. I'm pumped about that.
Yes, I'm very excited. I need to get caught up on the second, maybe third episode. I can't remember how many are out now. The first one was great. So looking forward to more of that. But there's so much. We can divide and conquer, which is why we love promoting guys like what's on Disney Plus. A couple weeks ago, WDW Radio. Sometimes it takes a village, and we're just trying to be a contributing member to that village, and to contribute. You don't want to grow up too fast, because you still want to find the stuff that your kids are going to enjoy, whether they're 2 years old or 15 years old, or heck, some of our kids are 45, 50 years old. But again, you don't want to grow up too fast.
Yeah, and regardless of whether you are a big fan of Disney's past, present, or future, whether you're young or old, there's always something that Disney has for you. So if you don't find something on first glance, keep digging, because you gotta keep exploring.